I'm Mitchell Davis, world's best developer
Oh, you're too
in
kind.
Laravel.
I'm Gavin Tye. I'm okay at sales and marketing, I guess. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah. And
Gavin, what are we building?
we're building a B2B SaaS platform called SixSides to help bring event communities together for organizations and businesses. So
Well done. It's
yeah,
called SixSides.co. You can check it out. Gav, how's it going, mate?
yeah, good mate. It's been a interesting week. I got to see under the hood of the platform, like we spoke about it last week, and has actually sparked some thoughts about design and all that kind of stuff. And I'm enrolled in TAFE to do a programming course now. Um, no, I haven't
I
done any
don't
of that.
think they teach Laravel at TAFE.
Yeah, fair enough.
You might be doing some old school programming there, but yeah, nice. It was fun. So let's talk through that. We sat down. We record on Fridays. We sat down a few days ago on Wednesday, I think it was, and probably spent like an hour, maybe an hour and a half or something on a
Yeah, it was a
call,
while. Yeah.
and it was really fun. So I showed you the progress of the meeting bookings feature
Yep.
in the Six Sides app. We sat down and we went through how it was looking and feeling, kind of the user experience of it, of what it would be like to, if you're an attendee or a speaker or a sponsor at an event, to sit down and book a meeting with someone. And it was really fun. You had a lot of good feedback on, oh, this is cool. It would be great if we could do it like this, or yeah, we kind of just went back and forth. You had identified, and I agree that like a lot of the screens in the app at the moment are very repetitive. We
One
kind of just have,
dimensional. Let's call it one dimensional. Yeah.
yeah,
One dimensional.
yeah, and
And to be fair, you weren't thinking about going beyond that original conference. So that makes why spend time on that? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it kind of. So as I was building out the app originally for Laracon Australia last year, I was thinking about, okay, how would this apply to other events in the future? But I was up against a time crunch, right? I had a deadline of this has to be ready by this date. And in addition to that, I also had my talk to prepare for.
Yeah.
And so it kind of just was like, this is going to have to be good enough. And I think it was fine. Like I'm not embarrassed about it or anything. But yeah, we now that we have more time, it's great. So getting your feedback of like, hey, this is a little one dimensional, as you've said it. And I have no issues saying, yeah, it's a bit boring. So I think you're trying to be too nice with it. But we now have the time to sit down together and make it better. And yeah, so we've made a start on that already. So we were to try and give people a peek behind the curtain. We're looking at like Dribble, which we mentioned on last week's show, to try and look at some ideas of different dashboard type screens inside of mobile apps that show like some high level metrics, just get some numbers and things like that on the screen. And we're starting to move down that pathway of actually implementing some of those screens into the app. So we don't have anything finished yet, but it's the ball is now rolling, which feels really good. And
Yeah.
it was really fun sitting down with you for an hour and just like shooting the shit on, hey, what if we changed it like this, or have we thought about how this might work? It's like those product uh, meetings, are really fun, I think.
Yeah. Look, I can see both of us when we run our own business, right? We just have our single train of thought and don't have, there's not a lot of people that can offer input and shaping things out. And I really value it. So even you were showing me some stuff the other day and it was like, oh yeah, look, what if we could mirror what we see on an iPhone with like there's a notification there and it was like, and you're like, yeah, oh, look, and it was amazing for you to go, yeah, look, I can just do that then. And I was like, holy shit, like that's
Yeah.
fast, right?
Yeah.
And
Sometimes that's fun, like being able to say something and then 30 seconds later it's on your screen and, it
yeah.
might not be finished, but it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can really quickly move.
And I think when we say you say boring and I say one dimensional, like I think the reason I use that language is because if you say boring and then the opposite of boring is unboring, right? It's not really a measure. So I think about one dimensional And we go, okay, well, what's the opposite of one-dimensional? Multi-dimensional. And you go,
Yeah.
okay, well, then that's something we can shoot for. What does that look like? That's what I try to go. Is there a tangible something inverse so we could actually like measure an improvement? And with that, because we've given some people who we're talking to next week, which we'll talk about, we've got some really interesting meetings next week. These people, whether they may not say it to our face, they'll be saying, "Oh, look, it's repetitive or it's one
Yeah.
dimensional." And if as long as we can get ahead of that message, like next week with, we got the one on Tuesday, that if we can get ahead of that message and say, "Oh, by the way, you probably think it's very repetitive. We've been thinking about this," and they're like, "Oh, these guys are progressive. Like they're already anticipating," and they're like, they are moving, and that's where we're trying to. I think what I try to do is anticipate objections or reasons for a no, and get ahead of that. And you don't have to be that far ahead. You just have to be ahead enough for them to go, "Oh, they're they're
We're
really
on it.
progressive." Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So, but it was
Yeah.
good. I like that. I would love to do more of it. Since then, I've been searching around on, you know, AI sites to get some ideas on how to structure what the back end looks like. And I can see exactly why you go, I don't use them. Like a lot of those, like because your skill set probably outweighs like a lot of that stuff. It's just, it's the speed of what they can do in multiple different like things. It's just, yeah, I can see why. But it's
Yeah.
still good food for thought and get some ideas, fresh ideas, right?
Well, a good example of this is like when you and I sat down at the start of that call on Wednesday
Yep.
and you brought up, like, hey, these screens are a bit repetitive. I was like, yeah, I agree. What if we think about engaging a designer to like come up with some concepts here? And immediately you were like, what if we used AI instead? It's going to be a bit cheaper, just certainly. And then we're able to use our own, it's not like we're idiots. Maybe in some ways we are, but we've got our own thoughts on, okay, how can we take this and make it a little better, and kind of get there,
Yeah.
get to some level of like a nice design on our own using
Yep.
AI tools. And you were really quick to be like, no, let's try this instead. And maybe that's an area where I'm a bit old fashioned, from even just a few years ago. It's funny how quickly technology moves.
A backwards hat, old fashioned 32-year-old man like that. Like,
That's
yeah.
right. I'm old now. That's it. So I'm old school, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. I think we've moved towards a design that we're both really happy with, and
Yeah.
we'll continue to iterate on. When things like when this business is successful, and touch wood, hopefully we will get there. I would
Yeah.
love to invest in really good design,
Oh, yeah.
which I think would be even better than what AI can come up with.
100%.
I
Yeah.
would really like our stuff to look the best in
I
class.
already
Right?
know the guy. I already know the fella. Haven't
Do
spoken to him
you?
for a few years, but I already know the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So after our call, we had that call last week. I was speaking to Hirali, he was on podcast 3 or 4, I think. I can't remember.
Or
4. Um, and I just spoke to him about the use case, our conversation. And I was like, could we set up a time and then just go give you what our problem is and then you apply it to what you're doing in your world? And he goes, yeah, for sure. I'll get Graham in, who is a 30+ year developer who is completely against AI. And then he said, now he's completely for it, but in a certain context. And and because I'm investigating AI in my world, like in my business, and my thoughts around it are really probably aligned with what you're thinking, right? A little bit ahead is I don't think it should be human replacement AI, like to replace the work. And if I think about it in sales, in my field of sales, right? If you go in and just without any context, ask it to write me a lead generation email or something about your business, it is garbage. It's absolute
yeah,
garbage. It's actually not very good at all. But if I give it a framework to operate in, or give it the context or the foundation, it is far stronger. And then I can mold it for the final 10%.
yeah,
One of the things Rolly said was, um, what it does is it really helps. Sometimes it gets caught in a loop and it's not very good. And, but if you're a good developer like Graham is in his business, he can spot the loop, write the code, gets out of the loop, and then it actually goes on. He goes, but if you're not a very good developer, you can't see the loop that it gets. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know what a loop
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
but,
I get you.
but he goes, if you don't know what you're doing and you use AI, you can't get out of it. So,
Yeah,
um,
might get stuck.
yeah. So he's offered to set, which I completely forgot about until just now. He's offered to set up a session just to talk through the journey of they've gone on, just to give you some insights, and we can ask them about some of this stuff if you're open to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we can try and do that in the next few weeks, and then
Yeah.
we can
Next
report
2 weeks.
back.
He was just messaging me about something else just then as we were talking. So I put my phone on silent before. So, yeah, I'll set that up. It'll be, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that'd be really interesting to see how someone that's doing this all the time does it. Because 100%, there are
Yep.
lots of tools out there, that have exploded over the last few years that I just don't know about, So, yeah, that would be amazing. Okay, well, we'll do that and we'll report back.
But on a side note, just watching you do that stuff and programming and all that stuff is amazing. Like I've deliberately stayed out of that in a sales role, and generally not being a founder, there is so much distraction. Like there was when I was at Red Eye, I saw myself this at the software company. There are internal facing roles who get paid to be internally focused, and they have a lot of fun, and that's a startup culture, right? Oh, we're great at a startup. But then there's a sales role that is outwardly facing. And I was way inward facing, and I was like, hang on a sec, I'm not paid for this. I'm an outwardly facing role. And I kind of had to stop interacting internally. So I never really paid attention to what was going on. And it's different now, and I've got to change my mindset about it. But I thought it was amazing. And and now I'm starting to learn what a founder is. It's like, no, I have input in this. Right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not necessarily just you doing it. It's we cross over in some areas. Obviously, I'm not going to write the code, but the touch and feel of it and the intention of it and how it applies to different sides of the community is very much inside what my thoughts are. Right? Yeah.
100%. It's like, it's great. It's more than 1 + 1 = 2. It's probably 1 + 1 = 4 or 5 for what we're able to sit down. And when you've got someone else who's like, you're living and breathing this with me, as opposed to like an employee or someone doing consulting for us or whatever, like we are thinking about this all the time.
Yeah.
And so getting your thoughts and your feedback on, let's change the way that this like booking a meeting process works, to better fit what will actually happen at a real life event, as opposed to just being in a vacuum and, oh yeah, there should be a button here. And it kind of does that, So it's great. Getting your input on product is awesome. And then
because one of the things that come up the other day is currently it's a dark theme app, which is fine for developers, right? But we are chasing a volunteer agency they're not a dark theme type of business. So I was like, oh yeah, I think we need to be able to change this, because that's one of the things they're going to say is they're going to want to be light. And I was just thinking just before I was halfway through that conversation is about that meeting on Tuesday, and I wonder how hard it would be to do a screenshot to say, hey, I know currently we're this theme, but we're thinking about, should you give us a chance, we would be thinking about something like this in line with your brand. And that would be like, to me, that'd be like, wow, these guys have gone above and beyond. Right.
Well, the app is fully themable. So I have built it in that way where, okay, I just define basically a set of colors of like, this should be the background screen color, this should be the text should look like this or whatever, maybe certain highlights, things like that, because I know that and I knew even back then that branding is going to be different for every event. Right.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest with you, I prefer light mode. Like I really, as I record this, I've got 2 giant lights sitting here above my screens. It's funny, Nicole, my fiance, fucking hates the light. Like she just wants everything dark, like all the time, basically, is what it feels like to me. But then when we sit down to eat dinner, I'm like, let's put the lights on. So yeah, I'm like, I don't want any of my the apps that I'm using to be dark, but Laracon Australia
Yeah.
specifically wanted it to be dark.
That's
So
surprising. Like you look like you were a redhead and you'd be sunburned under fluorescent light. Like,
it was never that bad. But yeah, I didn't. I wasn't much of an outdoors kid,
yep.
for sure. But yeah, fluoro lights, I could deal with those. That's just fine. So yeah, I am thinking about how can we do theming
Yeah.
and branding for every event that we're running through the platform, and it's an interesting space to be in because it's more than just like, adding your logo up the top right of the application or top left, or whatever. Like it's more than that. It's kind of the app becomes the brand, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
So having to really have the tech in place where we can take any event's branding and
Yeah.
apply it pretty quickly, and now the app looks good and it looks like their own app.
Yep. Oh,
It's
well,
white labeling to the extreme is
because I'm
kind of what
looking
we're
on
looking
the
at.
I'm looking on that volunteering website right now and they're red and white. And it'd be great. Like you can see the banner, which is obviously not going to talk about the business, but you can see the
Yeah,
banner. It'd be great if you could just go like, because I think about, sorry, just back up a little bit. I think about in the early days, you want people to emotionally invest in what we're doing, right? Because that they're going
yeah,
to invest in us emotionally before business. Like there's no reason for them to invest in us. So to trust us other than emotionally invested because we've only got one conference, we're a new business, right?
yeah,
So, and if we can show them quickly about, hey, this is how we envision the app to look like, very similar to your website. It may not be that, but it's like um, furnishing a house when you're trying to sell it. Like if it's just bland, you're asking them to do too much. But if we can go,
yeah,
hey, that looks like that, but there is a fine line between you spending 4 hours on doing something and then them not going anywhere because that's 4 hours you can't spend. The opportunity cost of that is huge. But if it
yeah.
was 15 minutes, like that is, or I could do it. Yeah, God forbid, I probably can't. But something that to go, hey, this is just what we're thinking. Like I'm looking at this now going, imagine that screen and when we're rethinking the tiles to have that as a background with the light color. That would get me excited. If I was the volunteering business, I'd go, oh, I get a sense. I can see myself. I can see us using the app in a conference and they're already emotionally putting themselves in a scenario. Yeah.
Well, what I would love to, like, when I hear that, I would love to build into our marketing website the ability for you to like configure, hey, this is, this business is considering using the app.
Yeah.
This is their logo. These are their colors. And then generate like a bunch of screenshots or give them something like, actually, we've talked a little bit this week about the web dashboard side of things. So yes,
Yeah.
this is largely a mobile app based platform, but there will be a web dashboard for event organizers and maybe some of the other sides of the
Yeah.
whole community there. We're kind of thinking through like, okay, maybe there's an interface there where like for a speaker to add links to their slides, maybe they can do that from within the web dashboard, but it's like the interface is kind of like build your own app screen, kind of.
Yeah.
So they're actually clicking a button in the mobile app, which is embedded inside of the website.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this is like, if we get things to that point where we can have a fairly realistic, like, simulation of the app available on the website, then maybe there's like a tool that we could be using, which is like, hey, Gavin, you go punch in the events, like the event organizer's website into this thing. It goes, ChatGPT, go fetch me the main colors used on this site, give me
Yeah.
a link straight to their logo, give me, some rough names and things like that, sucks it all in. And then we've got a realistic link that you could then send to those prospects, right?
Yeah.
That it would show
Yeah.
them their
Yeah. You
app. So
could. Yep. So
we could,
what about for now, could we use Figma? Because they do click-throughs, right? Wireframes. Could we just set up a wireframe of the dash, like the front couple of screens, and then if I can configure at least to the colors and put the back, like I'm looking at, just go put the banner at the back in the top quarter. We follow some design principles that you set out.
Yep.
And then I can go, hey, look, just as an example, this is what we're thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because imagine, I just sort of, I'm jumping around here a bit because you're sparking some
Yeah.
some thoughts. But
It's cool.
if we could do that and go, hey, like we got this meeting on Tuesday, going, hey, look, I just took the liberty just to show you just how yes, it would change a bit. You would put an example, AWS as a sponsor or something,
Yeah.
but that's how we would essentially see the theme as an example. This was what you can configure. And then you want people to go, shit, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Or what you said before, let people self-configure on their website and they go, that's amazing. I want to get in contact with these guys. And then they go submit, set up a time. We're still trying to figure out what that looks like for our business, whether it's an app or standard. Yeah. But yeah, that would be interesting. So could we set up a Figma site on this to start doing that stuff?
We could.
Yeah.
Could we do it before Tuesday? Maybe a little trickier.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to give this volunteering meeting the best shot. Maybe I need to just spend a little time in the code and just update, make a copy for them so that we can show them. But yeah, this sounds really fun. And this type of demo experience, being involved in the sales process, I find very fun to think of, like, well, how can the technology help sell the technology,
Yeah. And the outcome, everything we're trying to achieve, and I always say it, right? Like just doing it as a task is not enough. The specific outcome we want to achieve is I call it a holy shit moment or a wow. Like that wow is what we're looking for. Because that blows them away. That's like, that's interesting. That's not what we're looking for, right? We want them to go, holy shit. Like look what these guys have done. Right?
Yeah. And if we could get it to a point where it was just punch in your website and we'll go pull in as much stuff as we can possibly know about you, all of your branding and whatever, that would be really, really compelling, I think.
Self-configurable. We're getting that one step to self-configuring, right? Which is I think that's our northern star, is a self-configuring. However, we have some ideas around that, which we're not going to talk about here, but somewhat self-configuring for all sides, which is, interesting. It's been productive.
Yeah.
Here
it's
we
fun.
know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's fun. Like sitting down and like, these are the fun moments for me. Like, yes, I do enjoy generally the meetings that we have with leads or with, eventual customers. I like getting to see you in your element. But I've really enjoyed being in my element, and you getting to see that. And then not just that, like you're giving value in those product meetings as well. So, mate, it's awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, I just put that on board for that. So, mate, we've got a couple of things to talk about. We talked about the iteration of design. We'll talk about redundancy or the risk in the sales process, right?
Let's do it.
So, as I've mentioned, probably in the previous podcast, that I've been doing a lot of volunteer work, and I've been like reasonably entrenched in the startup community here in Queensland, right? We've been talking to a certain organization around helping them with a conference. One thing that I've learned in my time as sales is if you have a single point of contact inside a business, if they leave, all the work that you've been doing over a period of time can quickly be eroded and amount to zero. And I've fallen in that trap, and like many times. So one thing that I've done is I've tried to a certain degree not have a single point of failure, just in case something happened, or I know who the decision maker is in this business, and I won't name them out of respect, but I know that she's really, really busy, and I know that she's tasked it with somebody else. But as it turns out, Zoe is leaving. She's leaving. I think she's leaving. Today's her last day. So, and it's such a shame. We feel like we're so close to getting a yes on this, and it could all come down to nothing. And it would
Yep.
especially come down to nothing if I had not had the coverage to um with her boss. So
Yeah.
um I'm going into the city tonight to say goodbye to her and thank her for all the help. And
Yep.
she said that hopefully she'll have an answer for us tonight. Um, but that notwithstanding, if we don't get that answer, I still have the relationship with that other person to hopefully
Yeah.
still get this along the line. But that's a person that's a not a person, that's a issue I see with a lot of people, especially founders, is they just have one point of contact in their business. And some of these contracts could be massive.
Yeah.
People are cycling out so often in jobs these days. At 2 or 3 years, I think that if they're longer than 3 years, it's an anomaly. Like 15,
Yeah.
20% are in that stat. So you've got to have redundancy in your sales process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Has this type of thing happened to you before, where
Yeah.
you've only had one? So you've
Yeah.
been in that position? Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
heaps. Yeah. Like it's not necessarily that they um leave, but there was one company, it's called ARTC, Australian Rail Track Corporation, where massive rail business here in Australia. And I was dealing with the head of engineering out of WA, out of South Australia for 2 years. And he said, "Oh, there's a big tender coming. You guys would be up for it because I'm doing an inland rail project from, I might get this wrong, but I think it's from Victoria all the way through to Queensland on the inland, like another rail,
Yeah. Yep.
multi-billion-dollar project."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I really want to use you guys, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, okay. So I just took this guy Phil's word for it. And he doesn't necessarily know. The
Yeah.
tender come out of Queensland or New South Wales, and we had not had any coverage
Yeah.
against them. So we waited 2 years, answered the tender, didn't get past the first round because we didn't have any, we just didn't have, it was just very one dimensional.
Yeah.
Or and it was a massive
That
lesson
hurts.
learned. So you've got to round it out just to see what other players are in there.
Yep.
Um, and other big, I've seen multi-million-dollar software deals hinge on one person. That one person leaves, and it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. So
Something to keep an eye on for us, I guess.
yeah,
It seems like most of the other leads that we're speaking with, it's probably there's at least two people, I think, involved in most of the conversations that we're
yep,
having. Is
yep.
that fair to
There,
say?
there is, and if I'm also like it's also a tactic as well is to get you involved in those conversations because you want
Yeah.
it to round it out. Like
Yep.
last week, we were talking to this business around some functionality, and I deliberately didn't want to come into the meeting because I didn't want it to feel salesy, but I wanted that you to build a relationship there as well, so they can go, oh, holistically they start having better connections,
Yep.
and it's the biggest. It may not seem like a big thing, but it's a really big thing to have multi levels of conversations, multiple levels of
Absolutely.
conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot that that was a thing that's happened since we last recorded. So on that point, I mean, I guess I can say that was with Zoe. Like we've named her a few times throughout here, and so last week I sat down with Zoe just on my own and went through the meeting bookings. Because she was at least kind of part of our strategic advisory council,
Yeah.
and now that might be a there might be a question mark there for us, but who knows? But anyway, sat down with her and kind of walked through what we had already built, and then some ideas of hey, this is roughly how it's going to work. It was great. We probably were on for like only 20 minutes or so, so it was quite low effort on her part, which is what we had talked about making it. You know, that's all it should be is just I come to the table and say, hey, this is, we've got all these different ideas and different ways we could go about this, bring her something that is actually tangible and she can look at, and she couldn't use it herself. So there was a lot of like, oh, could you click that back button and then go to this? And, so it was a little like maybe in the future, if there's some way to kind of have that be a bit more live, that would be great. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
early
I think
days.
that's okay. If in early days, right, they know it's just
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was really good. And it felt good for me to connect with a customer or a potential customer, because it is a big part of it. And often I think like people, if I get on a call with someone, like especially in this business, it's not to be salesy. I think maybe people bring their guard down a little.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Yeah, which can only be seen as a good thing,
Yeah.
you know. Not even in like a uh yeah, they bring their guard down and then we hit them with the sales or whatever. Nothing like that. Just, you're right, to build really good, like strong relationships with people. Hopefully it leads to business, right? That's
Yep.
ultimately what we want, but it's really good. So if you're like, if someone listening to this is in a similar type of position where, like, similar company makeup, where there's, you know, someone building the thing and someone trying to sell the thing, try not to shy away. As the developer or the builder, try not to shy away from these conversations, because they don't come super easily to me, the sales stuff. That's why I, you know, wanted to work with Gavin here. But it's really good to connect with the end customer, you know, that's going to use your thing that you're making. So,
Yeah, that's right. And you want evangelists. And I try to think is, even though like I'm responsible for getting people to buy it, if it feels like a sales meeting, it should not be a sales meeting, right? Like I try my hardest for it not to be that. Yes,
yeah.
I have an agenda. Yes, yes, we want to push it forward, but they should naturally want it, right?
Yeah.
If we do the right thing, if we show them, we shouldn't be like, hey, what will it take you to sign today?
Yeah.
You will never hear me say that, right? You will never hear me sign it.
I'll keep you true
You
to
never,
that.
pardon?
I'll keep you true to that.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
you'll
report
never hear
back
me.
if I ever hear you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you'll never hear me say that. So, um, because if you're being pushed to say something like that, you've been lazy earlier. You're just trying to, um, you haven't done enough groundwork. And that's where I think we're trying to be different, right? So,
Yeah.
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 Um,
Oh,
but yeah,
you
so
are
in
not lazy.
conclusion there, like in any situation, like I'll try to meet or introduce you into other people, like so we have that, I call it back channel. Like it's
Yeah.
really an unofficial, like, hey, what's going on? Well, let me just make a call about something and then I can see what I find out. Like it's another
Yeah.
avenue to find out some information or context if we need it. So
Yeah.
um it's really, really important. People are going to
Yeah.
buy from us as a pair,
Yep.
not SixSides, right? They love the
Yeah.
functionality, but they're going to love what we do. So
Yeah, hopefully. And like, to be clear, on this call with Zoe, I did ask her at the end. I was like, "So how are things going? You know, like, what is this looking like?" And I'm still free to ask that, but it certainly wasn't the point of the call.
yeah, yeah,
It's no, let me show you some things, let me get your feedback. It's great, and then, oh, you know, well, I mean, I might as well ask, how are things going? And yeah,
yeah,
so very natural, and felt great. It was great to get feedback. She really liked the direction that it was going,
yeah.
and yeah, I'm really excited to implement some of those things that we talked about with her.
Nice.
So, meeting bookings are, I guess, to give like a final update on the meeting bookings. After our call on Wednesday, I've continued to make some progress. It's not quite ready yet, so it's not as far along as what I had hoped. This week, unfortunately, has been a bit busy, and I was on leave as well yesterday. I had a day off, so a little bit behind on it, but it is moving along. So hopefully by next week, we'll have it at a point where it's up and running.
Yeah,
That's the
nice.
goal.
Yep, cool. Um, Now, thinking about this, it feels like we are. I think there's a very good chance we're going to have three, if not four, opportunities or four clients who will give us a go. Right?
Yeah,
Um, it's not massive revenue for now, but that's not what we're after. We're after case studies and learning and stuff like that. I
yeah,
It's starting to dawn on me is we need to start transitioning to onboarding,
mm,
right? Like thinking about onboarding and not taking our eye off clients, um, finding clients. I just don't think we have the capacity for 10 clients. Like we just don't want that right now, right? It's more about
probably
proving it
not.
out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so my mind's starting to switch to onboarding or how we actually give the different messaging. Because one of the clients we spoke about, potential clients the other day was saying, oh, it's interesting. And we spoke about the potential, um, how they could actually go to sponsors and say, hey, by the way, like they were saying we're not actually profitable until right before the conference, and then we might say yes. And I was like, okay, well, let me give you a different line of thinking. What if we give you messaging around the functionality of the app for attendees and sponsors so you can use that as a sales tool to get more people to say yes? And they're like, I never thought about it like that. I was like,
Yeah.
if you can do that and makes it more appealing, and then people are likely to think that like we'll get a bit better ROI, and they're more likely to say yes earlier. And I said, but
Yep.
you can't do that if you wait too long. And they're like, that's an interesting thought. I never thought about it. And
Yep.
and I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, shit, we haven't written any of that stuff down. So now we've got to
Yeah.
start doing that, being prepared. So
We got more
my
docs to
mind is
write.
thinking about that. As soon as someone says, yeah, that's great, we'll take you up on that. And then we're like, okay, now we've got to write that content. So how do we onboard them? Like giving them messaging for that, then simultaneously, how do we onboard them in an efficient way that does not drown you in work, right?
Yeah.
Or and allows for them to do some self onboarding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge. I've never, of any of my own projects that I've launched, so not client ones, I've never really felt great about the onboarding.
Okay.
And that
Why?
probably, hey,
Why?
just because it's like onboarding means a lot of things to a lot of different people, right? Sure, you might be able to sign up for an account and put in your credit card or whatever, right? But then like to be able to fully configure your account in this platform, or in this case, like setting up a brand new event, adding your team members as well if you've got other people that are, helping you organize it. Like there's a lot of different things that we're going to have to do here.
Sure.
And that's a part of it, right? We have to do all of that. That's fine. But I, for my own projects, I haven't ever executed on that really well.
Okay.
Just putting a self-critical eye,
Yeah.
over
Yep.
previous things that I've launched.
Gotcha.
So I would really like to change that, obviously, for SixSides. Like we need to get this right. And I'm confident that we will.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Yeah, we sat down on this same call on Wednesday. I kind of showed you the state of the web dashboard, and it does have like an ability to sign up as an event organizer. But basically, I'm just using, as I'm like testing or working on the platform locally, I'm using data that it's called seeded, which is like fake data, effectively, that I've created through programming language. So I have, again, using Laracon as an example from last year, because that's how this was all kicked off. I've got a seeder which has like information about Laracon Australia 2024. It's got a few days of data in there and all the different talks and things like that. And I'm kind of using that to build up the state of the database.
Sure.
We don't have that in production. So I have to go and build the screens that allow people to punch in the details of the event and the dates that it's running and all the speakers and things like that. There's a lot of like screens that need to be built out to allow someone to self onboard, as opposed to just giving me like a link to their event website and then I go in manually and fill all of that info in the database, because that won't scale.
Okay. Yep. So it's interesting. So I think so onboarding means different things to different people. Like one thing the founder that I worked with before, he said, do it, document it, then improve it. Right. So if we figure out, let's just say we have 4 clients, we get no more this year. I reckon maybe, yes, you've got all this stuff to build, right?
Yep.
If you could show me how to put that in, then I can take some workload off you, right?
Yep.
But then you're going to have to dumb it down to make, because I don't understand, like you show me how to do that, right?
Yep.
And then if we can do that and then make it repeatable. Yeah, so Dan Martell is pretty prominent sales, not a sales guy. He's now an entrepreneur and runs multiple businesses. He talks about SOPs, like building SOPs. So if we can do that and not worrying
Standard
about,
operating procedures.
yes, sorry, standard operating procedure. So if we can do it, you build it, and we figure out you can teach me first level, then we can turn that into um, a standard operating procedure. Then maybe we can hire an EA to do that, and
An
then so that
executive assistant. Man, I'm just trying to help the audience, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, okay, yeah, a-hole. Um,
That means asshole.
um, so if we go, if we build a like standard operating procedure for this stuff, and then that's one step closer, then we go, okay, can we automate that in the future? But we at least we can bring in some type of EA on the lower, like that is at a cheaper price point because we
Yeah.
still have our day jobs. So, and then
Yeah.
we can essentially build that out. If and he says, Dan Martell says, um, if you should build a business all on SOPs, right? So
Yeah.
then everyone's following the same thing because if you don't have that, you can't replicate, right? And you
Yeah.
can't manage properly. So I think that is where um, building an SOP around that about onboarding, what does onboarding mean, and learn from each one. I think that's probably the way to go forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts,
Well,
feedback, criticism.
yeah, or no criticism. I have thoughts and feedback. Is yes, I agree. Like in principle, having if we can document as much of our process as possible as we try and grow and scale, add more people into the
Yeah.
mix that can do all the different things that we need to do to get an event over the line, not just in sales, but actually run it. I've had a lot of success in the past with documenting those types of
Yeah.
like business details, things that procedures, SOPs, as you said.
Yep.
So, yep, I totally agree. As far as the actual data that's needed, it's fairly minimal for us to set up an event, which is great. Like a lot of the value that we provide is based on the attendees participating, right, in the event and in the different networking games or whatever might be going on at the event itself. So
Yeah.
setting up the event is fairly minimal. Like,
Well, it's
yes,
the
we have to,
configuring, right, and adding people
yeah,
in, right, which is the
yeah.
yep. So
I
maybe that's
started
what. Sorry.
I started looking this week at Zapier or Zapier for some of the ticket platforms that are out there. Like Ticket Tailor, for example, they have a Zapier or Zapier. I'm going to use Zapier. I don't know. They have a Zapier integration where if someone purchases a ticket, they can send that over to wherever the event organizer configures that to go.
Can you do that again?
We'll cut that out. That could be our new
It'd be part of our
intro.
theme song. Yeah.
That's when we're on to like a really good thing. Um, then they can Zapier can send that to wherever, and we could have that feed in to SixSides, right? So now there's no like download a spreadsheet from
Yeah.
Ticket Tailor and then upload it into SixSides. I would like to get us to that point. I know it's probably too early days for us to be
Yep.
doing that, but we could have that, towards the end of the year, we could have a fairly standard integration with a few of these platforms. And then those other platforms don't even need to be involved with that at all because they've already done their side, which is like when a thing happens here on Ticket Tailor or whatever, send it out into the ether, and then it's Zapier's job to deal with that of where should that get routed to. If I'm trying to think ahead of, okay, how can we make this as easy as possible for when we are at scale, and I think leveraging tools like Zapier might help.
Yep.
So yeah.
So my mind goes to profitability, right? Like our current price point, I suspect, is way too cheap. Like, but it's okay. So we're going to lose. I think we're going to lose money on this, and that's okay. We can absorb that.
Yep.
So to me, my mind goes is okay. Well, our price point's here, and we're going to lose money. How do we get there to at least break even or find out what? Well, there's two levers here. Is one is a cost you would expect in the beginning to configure and deliver an event is going to be at the highest it probably is now because it's all
Yeah.
manual stuff and we're learning, right?
Yep.
Our price point is low. We think we know the value of what we will provide, but we want to actually, on a third arm, if I had a third arm over here, is we want to measure the value so we know where our value sits, direct
Yeah.
and indirect, so that we find a price point of one, we deliver as profitable as possible. We first get to break even, and then while we maximize the value we offer, then we can increase the price.
Yep.
Then we can optimize and maximize profit per event. Right.
And we want to
So
deliver great ROI, right, for the event
100%,
organizers.
100%. And then out of that, it's how do we currently we're a sales led business because it has
Yep.
to be as a founder. And some things we're talking about to you is like, how do we make this one event? If it's sales led and needs to be, so be it. But
Yeah.
how do we turn that one event into three so we get multipliers of it? And we've got some really good ideas on that. I
Yeah.
also think what you said before about self-configuring your app
Yeah.
to give a sense of what it is and such an interesting sales tool.
Yeah.
Like, but we need to optimize. I think well, like a lower cost, use automation when we can, possibly AI where AI assisted,
Yep.
which is what we spoke about before, not replacement.
Yep.
Which all these different levers I find really, really interesting to
Yeah, me too.
but we've got to just know where we are. Like on the
Yeah.
first one, we've got to capture our hours to say, hey, it took us 20 hours to deliver this at a $200 an hour.
Yeah.
At least
Yep.
at the starting point, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. It's very early days. We'll certainly know a lot more as we get more runs on the board.
Yeah.
And we'll improve the efficiency of this process because it's not like this business is quite interesting that it's largely focused on these like one-off events. Sure, we would love to have like monthly meetups and things like that, like starting to think more regular events,
Yeah.
that sort of thing into the future. But for now, we are kind of focused on these larger one-off events.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to kind of think about, yeah, maybe there's different expectations of like software platforms for setting up for a one-off event versus creating an account for some monthly thing that might be happening. Like there's just like it's not quite a fully formed thought, but just interesting to think about that we are largely right now just focused on these one-off events.
Yeah.
As opposed to more regular ongoing things, which, might more closely align with like monthly SaaS, B2B businesses,
Yeah.
things like that,
Yep.
where we're in a
Yep.
different space, I feel,
Yep.
at least at the moment.
Yeah. It's interesting because what is some of the conversations we're having with these event organizers is then they say, we know that there is ongoing value. Like when I've sponsored at an event or attended an event as a sponsor, if you want your ROI over those 2 days, you are not going to get it. So
Yeah.
the ROI comes in the next 3 to 6 months after that, but you have to work for the ROI. It doesn't always happen. So what I mean by that is following leads, talking to speakers, following up attendees, building relationships. There's all this long tail stuff that comes from an event, right?
Yeah.
These event organizers know that that's happening, but they don't have a visibility into that happening, except when they just get anecdotes or stories when they're passing people, like in general conversation. So, and of course, an event app won't pick that up because they're only ever used for 2 days or 3 days, whatever the event length is. So the question becomes is what value, because we are trying to offer value pre, during, and after.
Yep.
What value can we offer after and during and before to
Yeah.
make people want to stay in it so we can capture those stories over the long term and then hence give that data back to the and we can't achieve that without having people stick around in the app.
Yeah.
So we haven't
Yeah.
figured that out. There might not even be a solution to that, but that's if we want to help them answer that, there has to be something else that we haven't thought of yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's we don't have a full scope, of exactly
Yeah.
what the next 12 months looks like. It's early days. So
Yeah.
you listener are really following along as we figure this out in real time,
Yep.
So
Well, they're certainly not watching on YouTube, Mitch, because we haven't got any views on our first upload from last week. So
it was a flop. I think we
no,
might
not
need
really.
to
Yeah.
we might need to look at the thumbnail, the artwork situation.
Oh, I
Maybe
don't know
we
about
want
that.
to
What's wrong with that? No.
I just think maybe
Yeah.
we could make it a little more appealing. Maybe the duo tone thing that we've got going
Oh, mate,
isn't
that's
serving
just the
us.
first one. I've got ideas. I'm going to keep the duo tone, but change the colors all the time. Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. I've got ideas, mate. Come on.
Yeah,
I have a
we'll have
design
to.
I like, which you keep essentially cyberbullying me about. But I think it's the fluoro lights that are making you angry on your
Yeah,
head.
that's right. Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that offline. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No. I have some ideas. It won't be that bland all the time. I don't like the thumbnail, so I want to change it already, but um,
yeah.
just slightly different, so people know it's a different episode, right?
Yeah, and we're thinking of we were talking just before we started recording about putting a link to the podcast on the Six Sides website itself. So you can see show notes for this at journey.sixsides.co, and maybe we can get a link to that on the marketing website for Six Sides. We also discovered that I was slack and I didn't add any website analytics. So we have no idea how much traffic we've had to the Six Sides website. We've got HubSpot integrated. There's the chat widget, I think it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've
And
had
I
a lot of that
kind
come
of
through, haven't we?
yeah, I think I kind of assumed that was doing some tracking for us. And so I was just like, it's fine. I won't worry about it. But I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to get that sorted out by, next week's recording. So yeah, just trying to think of how can we leverage, it's really fun sitting down and recording the show, and the episodes seem to keep getting longer. So we're having more fun as we go. But how can we get the most bang for the buck out of this? So yeah, we could probably be doing more to share these recordings with our audiences. At the same time, is there? I mean, let's be candid, right? Are you comfortable with sharing these recordings and exactly the state of where things are at, and that we don't have everything figured out yet, and all of that? Are you comfortable with sharing that publicly? Like,
What do you mean?
how's the podcast kind of sitting with you? I know obviously we record these and they are public. People could find them, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
are you comfortable promoting it? Is maybe the right question.
It's a double-edged sword there, I think, because in some instances, if we go for a big opportunity and we say, "Hey, we're just new and we're starting and we're thinking about this," like, does that bring doubt? Could that bring doubt
Mm.
into a client's head, like a potential client's head? Does that give them a lack of confidence? Um, I think there's a lot of similarity here. Like Sun Tzu's Art of War, um, is a really good. You could use some of that stuff there for sales, right?
Yep.
And when you're small, you should act really big, and when you're big, you should act really small. This podcast does not portray that we're big and we've got our shit in a sock. That's what I'm worried. That's what
I've
um
never heard of that before.
shit in
Our
one
shit
sock.
in a sock?
Shit in one sock. Yeah. Um.
I've
So
never heard of that.
um. So I'm not. It's a fine line there, right? But we are being honest and candid, and we are trying. Like, is that valued more over where we currently are? But I guess if we're talking to people and we're saying exactly this is where we are, and we're consistent with our podcast and what we're saying, we're not portraying, hey, we've got 5
Yeah.
massive clients across 5 different continents, and they log in and hear the podcast and go, oh yeah, we're just trying to still figure this out. We've got no clients.
Yeah.
I think being consistent across all channels and across all our messaging and authentic, which I think both of us are and what we're really trying to
Yeah.
be,
Yep.
I think that is, I don't think that's a bad thing, but I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you think?
I have heard other like podcasts in the past in this type of space of, okay, a new business starting up and they're kind of
Yep.
recording their journey and stuff. I've listened to quite a few of these, and often it seems to be a benefit early on to own up to that we are small. It's
Yep.
it's a new business. We're figuring it out. I've heard you say that so many times on these calls that we're having with potential customers of, we're still figuring this out, particularly around pricing and stuff. That seems to be the angle, right? But
Yep.
I don't know that I agree about the whole, if you're small, you need to act big and vice versa. I don't know that I agree with that in this case. I kind of like that if, we are honest people and we are trying to, like, a big part of what I want to get from this show and putting the work into doing these recordings is I want people to be following along with us and kind of rooting for us,
Yep.
And I think if we are, I don't think on the podcast we'll ever be projecting that we're big while we're small. We've been really honest from the get go. But if we're doing that publicly and saying, yeah, like we've got it all together and we're top shit, it is kind of different. You're right. We're giving different
Yeah.
messages in different channels, and that feels not great. So you had said to me about that, if you're small, act big and that sort of thing. You've said that to me before in the past, and I kind of didn't. I don't
Yeah.
think I um, gave you any feedback on it, but yeah, my honest feedback is I think maybe we should lean into it.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I'm when that skin comes from when we were like going for enterprise government clients,
yeah.
right? So large organizations where they're highly risk averse.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay, so there's levels to it, right?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
levels to it, right? Like if you're going for a massive multi-million-dollar conference and it's just us two in different things, like I
Yeah.
think the reality is like
Probably not
it's
going to
probably
get
not our
those for
target
now.
market, right?
Yeah.
Um, um, yeah. So, hey, if we're going to be honest and we're going to be transparent about what we're doing, fuck it. Be honest and transparent with
Yeah.
everyone. Put it out there and saying, hey, look, we're documenting. If you want to get to know, maybe that's it. Saying, like the people in the volunteering business, saying, hey, look, if you want to get to know what we are and what we're doing, we've had a
Yeah.
meeting, an hour meeting, like with us. We're actually running a podcast on what we're doing and our mission is and what we're thinking of. Go and listen to that. That'll give you more context around what we're trying to
Yeah.
do and what we're trying to achieve, and then
Yeah.
go from there. Yeah. So
We could also put ourselves on the website. That's one option to make it like I know one business, it's called Tuple, and they're kind of like Zoom, but for
yep,
developers. You
yep,
do screen sharing and you can click in and like actually type code on the other person's computer. It's amazing. It's changed our
okay,
lives as far as programming goes.
sure,
And early on, they had for years, they blew up during the pandemic, right? Because now all of a sudden everyone's working from home. So you got to hear their journey on the Art of Product podcast.
yep,
And Ben Orenstein, who was one of the founders, he was front and center on their website, doing like a little demo video, I think it was, or
okay,
something like that. But it was like, hey, this is us. We're a small team.
yep,
And they were going after, like, eventually enterprise clients, big
yep,
businesses that have thousands of developers, right?
sure,
And that seemed to work quite well for them. They called out a lot that, like, the personal, hey, we're small,
yep,
this is us, you can see
yep.
who we are, and putting that front and center, that seemed to work quite well for them.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
do
let's
it.
do it.
Like, let's do it. Let's do it.
So let's say by next episode I'll have that done, because we'll have to build out some profiles and stuff and then get
Oh
it
yeah,
out.
yeah, that, and then we can do a demo on the
Yeah.
website. And like, I was just looking at the website just then, which is the chat's not coming up in the window.
Oh,
So we'll talk about that offline. I've got some just
okay.
quick ideas on that, right?
Cool.
But yeah, look, I think, because I have been a bit hesitant about that, but just let's just do it. Like, what
Yeah.
if they don't like it and they don't like we're going to tell them where we are anyway.
Yeah.
If they don't like it, they're not for us. But if they
They might
at least
appreciate
because they're
it.
genuinely trying to help, then
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? So
Because totally, whenever we get on a call with someone, I feel that like you can tell when it's working well, that sense of connection. So if we can kind of preempt that and say, hey, this is us, now
Yep.
let's meet you.
Yep.
Maybe that will help,
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Cool. All
Awesome,
right.
mate.
Well,
Next week we got some we're wrap it up real quick. We got some interesting meetings next week, some sales meetings with different businesses that we're looking at.
Yep.
I think I had a look before, I've got 3 decent ones, right? So
Yep.
and then hopefully we'll find out something this afternoon.
Yeah.
You're chasing who in your side of the world as well. We could be going to Europe really
Could
quickly.
be. Yep.
You'll be heading over there into
Well, that would be in our winter, right? Which would then be their summer, and I much prefer winter. So that's a shame. But look, we'll see. It's early days. But yeah, that would be very exciting. So let's just make a pitch for it. If you happen to be running an event and you're listening to this and you would like us to have a chat with you about helping grow your community and giving everyone at your event, attendees, speakers, sponsors, everyone, a fucking awesome experience with a mobile app, then reach out. Yeah. Reach out. Head to SixSides.co. Check us out. Probably by next week, you'll be able to see Gav and I's faces on there and read a bit about us. And we'd love to have a chat with you about it. So why don't we wrap it up now? I've been Mitch Dav. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky. There'll be links in the show notes. Gavin, where can people find you?
On LinkedIn, Gavin Tye. So you can find me on there as well. I've actually just released an AI bot in my side of the world in Sales Market Fit to help people with their marketing messages and things like that. So if you are listening to this with that filter on, jump on there.
It's actually really cool. Gavin's shown me, and I encourage you to check it out. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Awesome. All right. We will catch you all next week.